The Alliance for Equality of Blind Canadians is pleased to present this audio-video replay. Please remember to like our videos and subscribe to our YouTube channel to receive notifications of future content.
Celebrated, thank you. National Accessibility Week is celebrated every year in Canada to highlight achievements and challenges of persons with disabilities across the country. My name is Peter Field. I'll be your Master of Ceremonies for today. The name of our event is called Ask Me Anything, and we're here to do exactly that, to have some fun, and especially for those who aren't as familiar with issues of blindness, visual impairment, deafblindness, as many of the people on the call may be. Hello, Tim. Thanks for joining us. It's a chance to ask questions that you wouldn't normally ask in a safe and comfortable setting. So as you would have noticed or have heard, we're recording this event. So hoping all of you are okay with the event being recorded, because it is an event that we want to use as the Alliance for Equality of Blind Canadians going forward. We have muted everybody just to have the event go smoother. We have the questions that many of you as audience members have sent in, so we're going to be asking those questions. And there may be opportunities as we go through the event for you to raise your hand and ask some additional questions if there's time for that. And I just want to make sure that everybody knows that if for some reason you have additional questions that we can't get to, or we're not able to answer a burning question that you may have, you can always send us questions to info at, I got to get this right, Marcy, info@blindcanadians.ca. That's the address?
Yes, it is.
Yes, thank you very much. info@blindcanadians.ca. So I'm going to start with a bit of a land acknowledgement. I'm coming to you today from the traditional territories of the Lecomic people, which are now the Ashcroft and Cooks Ferry Indian Bands in British Columbia. AEBC itself has no physical space. It's a virtual space, and all volunteers and staff work remotely across Turtle Island, spanning the Lekwungen territory in the west to Algonquin territories in the east. ABC acknowledges the traditional guardians of this land, and as such, all of us depend on traditional Indigenous territories for sustenance, safety, and community to work, live, and play on Turtle Island. We acknowledge our duty to walk with and alongside efforts at reconciliation and decolonization. So what I'd like to do is give you an idea about how we're going to sort of function for the next little while. Promise to keep you 90 minutes. It could be 95, but we're going to keep that as much of that time as possible. We're going to start with a round of trivia, and we have a couple of quiz masters with us who are going to ask you a series of trivia questions, and then just sort of note your answers. We're going to go through the answers. We're not going to make you wait. If you have questions about the answers, those would be great questions to kind of hold on to and ask our panelists if there's time later on. So as I said before, keep track of your questions. We love questions here at the AEBC. So without any further ado, I'm going to turn it over to our quiz masters to start asking the trivia questions.
Hi, everyone. It's Betty Noble. Sorry for the little delay there, but I just realized my video was off, and I thought perhaps the people in the audience with vision might want to at least see who I am. Because I'm going to be reading the questions in Braille, though, I'm going to be turning my video off so that I can use two hands to read fluently. So welcome, and here we go. Okay, question number 1 is a true or false question. If someone is legally blind, they can't see anything. So what I'm going to do is to tell you the answer to these questions, and you can just note within your own space how you feel about that and what you thought, and maybe you have had some misconceptions about blindness or vision loss, and maybe you haven't and you know all the answers. But in this case, people who are legally blind can very often have vision. 85 to 90% of people who are legally blind have some vision. They are able to um, use their remaining vision, but because there are so many different eye conditions, vision is often different for many people. Some people have good side vision, some people have good central vision, and it varies so much that it's best not to assume anything. Question number 2, which of the following is not a myth? A, most persons who are blind read Braille. B, persons who are blind have super hearing. C, persons who are totally blind see only blackness. And all people who are blind use a white cane or a guide dog. This answer might surprise you a little bit, but all of those statements are myths. Only between 7 and 25% of persons who are blind actually read Braille. Your other senses do not get more acute biologically, but persons who are blind learn to use their other senses more effectively. Many persons who are totally blind report they see images, shapes, a haze, or a bright light. Many persons who are legally blind are able to move around without using a white cane or a guide dog. Question number 3, which of the following should you do when you see a guide dog? Hang on, should you not do, sorry. Which of the following should you not do when you see a blind person working with a guide dog? So these are don'ts. Pet the dog, talk to the dog, talk to the person working the dog, make eye contact with the dog, offer the dog a treat. It's okay to talk to the person using the dog, but don't do anything to distract the dog. So that involves making eye contact. It's very important that you don't make eye contact with the dog. Just kind of pretend they aren't there. That's very difficult to do because many dogs are very approachable, and they would love to interact with you, but it's very important that you don't interact with the guide dog. Number 4, true or false? Blind persons don't go to the movies or watch TV because they can't see the screen. The answer is false. Most blind persons enjoy movies, especially when there is descriptive video provided along with the movie. And if there are some of you who don't know what descriptive video is, it's an audio track that's added to the movie which describes the action in the video. So that, in other words, if there's a bit of space with no dialogue and there's a quiet time and maybe you hear somebody's feet walking on the floor, you might hear a description something like John goes to the fridge and gets a beer, so that you know what's going on. Number 5, which of the following methods do persons who are blind use to acquire information? the printed word, sign language, braille, the spoken word, tactile symbols. The answer, which I'm betting most of you probably have already guessed, is all of the above. Many persons who are legally blind have enough remaining vision to read print, especially if it is in a larger font. Most persons who are blind rely on audio output, but some read Braille. People who are deafblind can often read American Sign Language tactily with their hands, or they use finger spelling or the two-hand manual alphabet, which also involves hands touching hands. If there are folks who are deafblind who have low vision, then they can read sign language visually, but they obviously have to be quite close to the person in order to do that effectively. Number 6, true or false. An intervener performs the same function as an interpreter. The answer to that question is false. An interpreter translates the language, while an intervener also describes elements of a scene. So, interveners and interpreters are used by people who are deafblind. And there is a very important difference because interveners do tell the person about what's going on around them, whereas an interpreter is just translating from sign language to English and back. Number 7, when offering to guide a person who is blind, should you take a hold of their arm, grab their cane or guide dog harness handle, take their hand, offer your arm for them to hold? And I know this may sound strange, but many of us have had experiences of people doing many of the things that I mentioned in the multiple choice. But of course, the answer is most will choose to hold your arm just above the elbow. Those who are particularly tall may ask you to put, if they can put their hand on your shoulder instead. Question number 8. What is the employment rate of persons who are blind in Canada? And there are some choices here: under 20%, 20 to 30%, 30 to 40%, over 40%. And the answer is that only about half of the full-time employment rate of the general public is true for people who are blind or partially sighted. So the correct answer was B, which is 20 to 30%. That's the employment rate. Number 9, which of the following is a myth? Employees who are blind will always need additional help to do their job. Accommodations for employees who are blind are very costly. Employees who are blind may do tasks differently. Employees who are blind will need someone to show them to the washroom. And employees who are blind cannot work in buildings with stairs. Or employees who are blind may need fellow employees to modify how they communicate. And I'm just going to turn a page here. And so this is a bit of a tricky one, but once an employee is oriented to their role and to the workspace, they will function as independently as other employees. They may need assistive technology and some additional accommodations. The cost of accommodating a blind employee is typically low, with many accommodations costing nothing at all or less than $500. The average cost of all accommodations is around $1,850, according to Canada.ca. A significant portion, over 88% of employee accommodations, cost less than $1,000. And my last question is, true or false? People who are blind do not participate in sports. And that's false. People who are blind participate in many different sports, including swimming, running, skiing, and more. So now I'm going to turn it over to Peter, and he's going to introduce the first panel members to you.
Thanks very much, Betty, and thank you for taking us through those questions. One of the purposes of National Accessibility Week, one of the major purposes, is to raise awareness in Canada. And we know that people are on all different spectrums of awareness. So there'll be people on this call who know a lot about these issues, people on the call who may not know as much, and people who are halfway in between. So we welcome everybody to this open and awareness session on issues of blindness and deaf blindness, low vision in Canada. So as part of that, we've assembled two panels that of three people that you're going to hear from today. And we're going into our first panel now. And then you'll hear from the second panel after our second round of trivia questions. So on the first panel today, we have Charlene Ayotte, Letitia Mafamobani, and Tim Nolan. Charlene Ayotte, or Charlie as she's known as, was founder and for many years ran a company called T-Based Communications. Charlie has a commitment and passion to universal design and full participation within the mainstream. Her company was founded for that reason and was positioned on that for its lifetime, and Charlie continues to hold those passions dearly. Charlie is now happily retired and living in Perth, Ontario, with her guide dog, Baron. Baron was trained as a guide dog, has now had her career change, and has become Charlie's guard dog. Tim Nolan has been a member of Hamilton's Disability Advisory Committee since 2002. He's been on a number of different boards and nonprofit organizations since the late 80s, including the Canadian Hearing Society. He also started the Blind Golfers Association in Ontario. He worked in different capacities in student accessibility services at McMaster for 31 years, of which he was director for the last 10. He has recently established the Hamilton, sorry, Tim, the Hamilton Accessibility Alliance called AHA. And when he's not doing all of that, he enjoys listening to old radio and TV shows. Letitia has degrees in mathematics and philosophy from the University of Gabon and an applied policy degree from the University of Sherbrooke, Quebec. She is fully bilingual, French being her first language. She is currently working for the National Network for Equitable Library Services and is the digital accessibility specialist for the Rick Hansen Foundation. She's also a board member with a BC organization known as Blind Beginnings. And if that's not enough, she has her own business making and selling scented candles and essential oils. When she's not doing that, you can find her reading, in the gym, or walking. So thank you, panelists, for agreeing to for our audience to ask you anything. So I'm going to start with the first question from our registrants, which is, what is the most frustrating assumption people make about people who are blind, deafblind, or have low vision? And Charlene, I'm going to address that to you.
What's
the most frustrating assumption people make?
Yeah, that blindness means that we don't have the capacity or capability to just be regular folks. That's frustrating. That there are assumptions that because we're blind, we are not as smart as everybody else, that we lack some essential ingredient that makes us equal. My thought has always been, just assume your equality and live it, and let everybody else worry about the rest.
Thank you, Charlie.
You're
Thank you
welcome.
for that answer. Does anybody else want to answer that question, Tim or Letitia?
I can go ahead. I just want
Yeah,
to
go
build on what she just said. I have so many experiences where people often think you can't do anything. Like they always feel like either they feel like they belittle your ability because you can't see. I give an example. A few years ago, I went to a conference, and before I went, I had this chat with a lady who wanted to order my scented candles and essential oils. She was all excited. And as soon as I said I'm a person who's blind, suddenly it feels like the quality of all that she has been ordering just suddenly the product are not good quality anymore. So you can tell that just knowing that I was a person who was blind literally changed her opinion of the product. But before she knew she was ordering them. There also this other assumption, because people think when you are a person who is blind, you are not as smart as others. So whenever you do something, there's always this kind of celebration. Wow, you are able to do this. This is just like, it's just normal things things that everyone can do. But when you do it as a person who is blind, it always feels, I mean, I'm always surprised when people feel amazed just because you can go to the hairdresser and change your hair color and do that every single folks can do.
Thank you, Letitia. Tim, I'm going to ask you a slightly different question, but related. How do you counter those sorts of myths and stereotypes when you come across them?
That's an interesting question. If I can just sort of go back to the last piece, and maybe this kind of leads me into your question. I often find that people are amazed when you accomplish something that they think you wouldn't accomplish otherwise. And they always think, wow, you're really good. And you're not. You're just doing something that anybody else would do. So I'm kind of leading into your question. It's just simply accomplishing the tasks that need to be done. And maybe you do them a bit differently. Maybe it takes you a little bit longer. Maybe you wouldn't do it as somebody else might undertake the same activity, but you have to be innovative. You have to be mindful of your accomplishment. I give you a tiny little example. When I had moved into a new house one time, I needed to hang pictures, and I didn't know whether the picture was straight or not. And somebody said, well, how do you know whether the picture is straight? And I said, I grab a marble and I put a marble on the top of the frame. And if the marble rolls off, then the picture can't be straight, can't be level. So I use a marble to determine whether a picture is level or not. So, and the person I was speaking with about that, they thought that was really innovative, which I thought it was kind of innovative. But the point being that, there's more than one way to accomplish the same task. You don't have to have a level on top of a picture in order to make sure it's level. So Yeah.
Well, thank you, Tim. I mean, I'm so grateful that I've come to an awareness event, because that's not something I'd ever thought of doing before. So thanks for passing that little tidbit along.
Yeah.
Second question, and this is one that I get all the time. Do blind people have better hearing than their sighted friends? Letitia, I'll start with you.
The answer is no. You
And
just
go ahead.
train you just train yourself. I can't say my hearing is way better than my sighted friend, but I kind of trained myself to use because I lost my sight gradually. So over time, I kind of trained myself to use sound to determine, for instance, where I am, where the traffic, etc. I probably have trained more my smell, than hearing. So I don't think my hearing is way better than other people. And I see it a lot, like people tend to say, oh, you might be able to hear any little noise. I say, no, it's just the same. But I kind of use it more now that I've lost my sight than, when I was partially sighted.
Letitia, and for people who can hear a dog barking in the background, that's on my side. Charlie, would you answer that question any differently?
My hearing improved as time went on because I was much more focused on hearing. I think when you lose one of your senses, that you tend to focus on the others, and I'm a sound-based learner. I always have been. I like to listen to presentations, to learn from them, not necessarily read anything about it, but to listen to listen to the things I need to know. So yeah, the hearing was a big deal to me, and I was focused immediately on my hearing once my eyesight started to go. So
Okay,
yeah.
thank you. And how about yourself, Tim? Have you noticed any differences or changes in your hearing as you've gone on this journey?
Pardon?
Have you noticed any changes or differences in?
I'm playing with you there, Peter.
I'm sorry.
No, my wife might disagree with me on this one, but no, I think, when you lose your eyesight, and for many, many years I was vision impaired, and since I retired, I pretty much lost most of what little eyesight I had. And I do think that because I'm paying more attention to what I can hear rather than what I could see, whenever, despite my vision being minimal, it's still, I was a very visual learner. So I paid a lot of attention to what I could see. And now that I can't, then I just simply have to pay more attention to what I can hear, or what I can touch, and what I can smell or taste. So I think there's just more of a concentration, more of a focus on some of those other senses in order to gather the information you need to know what's going on in the environment around you.
Which is where that selective hearing bit comes into play, right, Tim?
Yes, where that, yes, my wife again might disagree with me on that one, but yeah, I think you just, you have to pay more attention to some of those other factors in order to accomplish the same kind of information acquisition, if I could put it that way.
Okay, thank you, Tim. I'm going to stay with you, Tim, for the next question. What is one thing you wish everyone knew about vision loss?
That's a really good question. I think the first thing that comes to my mind is that vision loss is not the end of the world. It doesn't mean incapacity. It doesn't mean incompetence. It doesn't mean inability. It just means thinking things through in a different way. And everybody is different. And so everybody thinks things through in a different way. And just because you have vision loss doesn't mean you're not going to be like everybody else, just, you know, being your own person. So I think it's important that we try to let people know that just because you can't see doesn't mean that the world stops. You know, the world doesn't stop spinning on its axis. It continues on, and there are lots of great people with vision loss who've done lots of great things in history. And those things should be celebrated. All
Thank
of the
you,
good
Tim.
things that all people do. So, yeah.
Thank you. That's a wonderful answer. Letitia, is there one thing that you wish people knew?
Yeah, I wish that people think outside the box, like not put all people who have visual disabilities like in the same box. What I mean is this, like sometimes, let's say you go to a place and you need to be accommodated, and you may ask, can I have my bank statement in Braille instead of going online? Sometimes you can get the answer like, oh, but this other person who's blind said they prefer to have it, you know, electronically. So we are all called people who are blind or partially blind, but gradually we learn how to do things differently, clearly to reach the same goal. So people have to understand that one person is very good at, let's say, at develop better hearing, doesn't mean the other one has done it. So it's just accept people the way they are and accommodate them. I wish people can just understand that we are just like everyone else. There are differences among us. We are not just one person. The only label we have in common is visual disability or blindness, etc. It doesn't mean we do things the same way.
Thank you, Letitia. Yes, we're all different. Charlie, what's one thing that you wish people would know?
I would like blind people and the sighted world to know that digital is our great equalizer. And having access to the same information available to the rest of the public is essential to be provided to us, which comes back to my whole theory on assume your equality. Like, I don't ask permission to do things, I just do things because I'm equal already, and I don't need to prove that to anyone, less myself. I don't need to prove it to me. I already know that I'm arrogant enough to kind of stand in the light and do what I do. But the whole notion that we live in a digital world is so great, because we as blind people are purpose built for the internet. Nobody needs to know that we can't see or anything else if the information is digitally accessible and we have the tools to access it. And I'm committed to being part of the mainstream and not part of special, because we're all special in whatever way we are.
Thank you, Charlie.
You're welcome.
We're fast running out of time for the panel, so I'm going to ask one more question, and we'll see how far we get. We'll try shorter answers, maybe, so I can get through all three of you. Let's see how it goes. When wayfinding from home to a bus stop, what features in the built environment serve you the best? Letitia.
I think for me, like going from my building to just like the bus stop, I think it's probably the curb
Mm-hmm.
and also some, what do you call them? Some line. I guess the new type of ramps that we have now makes it a little bit difficult
Mm-hmm.
because there is no clear line that separate the street from the curbs.
Mm-hmm.
So I often
Okay.
find myself on the streets. But I had to say before it was mostly the curb, having a well-defined like the difference between the curb and the street.
Right.
That
And
helped me
that's
to cross properly.
and is that because you're a cane traveler? You use a cane?
Yes, I am. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Thanks, Letitia. Charlie?
Let's see. Yeah. If I had a guide dog, there is no
Mm-hmm.
problem
Mm-hmm.
getting from my place to a bus stop. If I'm traveling with cane, same as Letitia, it would be curbs and
Mm-hmm.
that type of challenge.
Okay.
And that's it.
Thank you. Tim?
Yeah, I think I'm with Letitia and Charlie. The curb is important, the shoreline on the property side of the sidewalk, but also sound. Sounds are really important to me.
Oh, yeah.
So if I know there are audible signals, crossing signals, those I can hear from quite a distance, or
Right.
I'm listening for traffic patterns, or one-way streets as an example is a great way of orienting yourself to east, west, north, south. So yeah, the sounds is really a key component also.
Thank you very much. And thank you, panel. You've survived your round of Ask Me Anything. Really appreciate you doing that, putting yourself out there and really being authentic. So I've heard some very authentic answers from people, and I thank you for doing that. So thanks so much for doing that from everybody here. So again, thank you. Again, if anybody has any questions, any follow-up from the audience, please write to us at info@blindcanadians.ca and we will get back to you because, as Charlie said, we are purpose-built for the digital age, and that's what we do. I'm going to turn it back to Betty because you have your chance, everybody, at some more trivia questions.
Actually, Peter, it will be me.
Oh, I'm sorry, Chantal.
No problem.
It's Chantal.
Hello, everyone. My name is Chantal Oakes. Thank you for joining us today. And I've partnered with another colleague. I'll let her introduce herself at this time.
Yeah, my name is Linda Bartram, and I'm going to be giving the answers. Chantal asks the questions, and I'll give the answers and a little bit of explanation with them.
Okay, so here we go. Number 1, true or false? You should be careful not to use the words such as see and watch when speaking with a person who is blind.
Okay, and the answer to that is false. We use those kind of words all the time when we're speaking. We just see and watch and look differently. And but we are not offended when that sort of language is used in our presence. So please don't stumble around trying to find a new language to speak to us.
Thank you. Number 2, which of the following may a person who is blind use to find their way around inside a building? A white cane. B, a guide dog. C, their remaining vision. D, mental mapping. E, audio and olfactory cues. F, landmarks. G, braille and tactile signage and wayfinding.
Yes, and so the answer to this one is all of the above. We use all of those techniques to find our way around. And I'll just sort of talk a little bit about mental mapping. That's when, basically you've created a picture in your brain as to where you are and where things are in relationship to other things. And it's a skill that blind people are often taught to do. Some of us are better at it than others. but it's vital to figuring out where you're going. Also, the sound of a fan or a water feature, or the smell of coffee coming from the coffee room, or a landmark, a solid landmark that stays put, like a potted plant. Those are all great things to help us find our way around. And Braille
Okay.
and sorry,
Yep.
just
Go
one more
ahead.
explain. And Braille and tactile signage is very important. As long as it's created to accessibility standards, and there are standards out there to create signage that's accessible to us in an appropriate way. Now I'm done.
Thank you. Number 3, which of the following is the greatest factor contributing to the over 72% unemployment rate of persons who are blind? Is it lack of awareness of employers, lack of needed skills, the lack of credentials, or lack of ability to travel to the workplace?
Yes, so we touched on this a little bit earlier, but it's the lack of awareness of employers that has been found to be the greatest barrier for blind persons to get employment. We don't often we don't even get our foot in the door. As soon as somebody hears that we're blind, they don't want to go there and are not willing to, explore the possibilities of how you can do the job. Most people going for jobs are quite qualified to do them, but they need to be given the chance.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Number 4, true or false? A person who is blind can use a computer effectively.
Well, I think Charlie gave us this one in the last round in the panel, but definitely people who are blind can use computers just as effectively as their sighted counterparts, providing, we've got the technology and the modifications that you need on that technology to access it using screen readers, etc. And also we're quite capable of surfing the web and sending emails, etc. We just need to make sure that everything is to appropriate accessibility standards that are out there now. Unfortunately, many websites still aren't developed to accessible standards, but when they are, we can access them effectively and efficiently.
All right. Number 5, how might a person who is blind, deafblind, or partially sighted use their white cane? A, hold it in front of them. B, sweep it from side to side along the ground. C, tap it from side to side. D, lean on it for support. E, carry it in their backpack.
So the answer to this one is all of the above. Blind people use white canes in various ways, and there are actually 3 different kinds of white canes. There's the ID white cane, which is quite short and thin, and a person who's blind may just carry that in front of them. It doesn't actually make contact with the ground necessarily, but they carry it just to alert people to the fact that they have some challenges with their vision. Then there's the long white cane, which is more like a mobility cane, which does make contact with the ground. And you might slide it from side to side, tap it from side to side, and it's used to find, obstacles and rough surfaces on the ground and doorways and stairways, etc. And the third kind of white cane is a support cane. So it's very similar to a mobility cane, a mobility walking cane that people who have mobility challenges might use, but it's white. So it indicates to those around you that not only Do you need this cane for support? You need to, you have difficulty with your vision as well. And then there's some folks who can still manage to get around without using a cane at all. And they may just carry one folded in their backpack or their purse in case they find themselves in a situation which challenges their remaining vision, perhaps if in a dark location or in a very unfamiliar location. They may get the cane out to try and help them to determine their surroundings.
All right. Moving on to question 6. Which of the following is not a practical use of the white cane? So not a practical use. A, to indicate the owner has difficulty seeing. B, to detect and avoid obstacles. C, to detect changes in the walking surface. E, to find doorways and stairs. To follow the, excuse me, I lost my place for a moment here. To follow the person in front of them in a lineup, or is it none of the above?
So in fact, it's none of the above. There are all ways that a white cane can be used, and the one that might be a little bit more surprising or unusual, and I didn't learn this when I first learned to use a cane, is to follow a person in front. If you're in a lineup, you can put the end of your cane against the back of the person in front of you, the back of their shoe. They're not even aware you're doing it. And as it moves, you feel them moving forward and can follow them along. So lots of different ways to use a white cane.
Next question. Persons who are blind can now use AI technology to do which of the following? Guide them to their destination, read a street sign, product label, or printing or writing, describe their immediate environment, identify the color of a piece of their clothing, privately verify who they voted for after marking their ballot independently.
Right. So it's all of these. AI is a game changer for those of us who are blind. And we're all still learning how to use it as effectively as possible, but it's allowing us to gather and gain information that was not available to us in the past. So AI is, as I say, it's a game changer, and we're learning the ways to utilize it. And the way that I left this question in, or this possibility in terms of gathering, verifying your vote in the last federal election. And I was able to vote totally independently and verify my vote using AI and my iPhone at the last election, which was a very liberating experience.
Okay. Which of the following statements is helpful to a person who is blind? It's over there. Or B, I'm leaving the room.
Okay, so this is one of the things I thought perhaps one of the panelists might have said they find is really frustrating. For somebody to indicate something is over there, and presumably they're probably pointing or at least looking in the direction, is a bit like, as the saying goes, you know, a nod is as good as a wink to a blind horse. And I think that most people probably, if they thought about it, would realize it was not helpful, but it's so automatic that a lot of people do say it even though they know that you're blind. So the answer, of course, is B, indicating when you're leaving the room, especially if you're in a conversation or in a group of people in a conversation and you decide to leave and the blind person is not aware that you've left. What ends up happening is we end up talking to the air, asking an empty seat a question, which is a bit embarrassing, but yeah, so it's helpful not only when you encounter a blind person who you know to let them know who you are. We're not all really good at recognizing people's voices, and some people's voices are not very distinctive. And also, if we meet you in a location where we're not used to seeing you, we're not putting it together. You know, if it's somebody you see at church and you meet them in the mall, you're not liable to possibly to know who they are just by the sound of their voice. So let us know who you are, and just as importantly, let us know if you're leaving so that we're not left talking to the empty air.
All right. Question number 9. Which of the following does a blind person use to independently determine when to cross the road? Traffic patterns, surge of parallel traffic, their guide dog, or audible signals, pardon me.
So it's all of them. We use all of these techniques to help us cross the road. And we're trained in orientation and mobility to learn how to cross the road using the sound of traffic, parallel traffic, and your hearing to keep at a safe distance from that traffic that's traveling in the same direction or parallel to the way you're going. Guide dogs are not trained to recognize street signs or traffic lights. A myth that possibly is out there, but they are trained to not move forward if it's not safe. So if you were unaware of the situation, or a car came up from the side and you didn't realize it and you directed your dog to go, they would not cross the road because they are trained. It's called what is it called? Something disobedience. And so they are trained to not go. And also audible signals have different sounds for crossing north, south, and east, west. So that helps you cross the road safely. And that's it. And last question.
It's called intelligent disobedience.
Thank you, Betty. Intelligent disobedience, right.
All right, one last question for trivia. Which of the following statements is true? A, persons who are blind can live independently. B, persons who are blind can be independent world travelers. C, persons who are blind can use computers effectively. D, persons who are blind can work. Persons who are blind can raise a family. Persons who are blind can participate in the visual arts. Persons who are blind play sports at a competitive level. And the last one, persons who are blind are just like you. They just can't see.
And of course, all of these things are true, and we hope you go away with understanding some of them a little better. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Chantel. Thanks for those questions. Really great questions to kick off our second round and leading into our next panel. Our next panel, again, 3 panelists, Amy Amanti, Marcy Yale, and Charles Bailey. Marcy would like you to know that she was born blind, and obviously cannot see colors. And she says colors are really the only language that she doesn't understand. She can't pick them up at all, but ask her to learn another language and she can learn it in 3 weeks. Sounds like somebody I would like to really travel with to some places if they're going to pick up the language in 3 weeks. It's kind of ironic that Marcy spent most of her life living in Toronto and getting around with a white cane. And then when she moved to the small town of Huntsville, she got a guide dog. Marcy worked 22 years for Rogers Communications and has been president of the Alliance for Equality of Blind Canadians for the past 5 years. When she's not doing all of those things, which I know she's really busy at, she is a participant in a rock choir. So yeah, that's really interesting. Charles Bailey graduated from the University of British Columbia in 1979 with a degree in psychology. Following graduation, he got a job with the Canadian National Institute for the Blind and worked there until 2003. Charles is now retired and enjoys reading particularly historical fiction, murder mysteries, and biographies, and lives in Chilliwack, British Columbia. Amy Amanti is Associate Director of the Vocali Descriptive Arts Society. She's also the Accessibility Coordinator of the Arts Club Theatre Company in Vancouver, the largest theatre company in Western Canada. For 12 years, she chaired the North Shore Advisory Committee on Disability Issues, for which she won the Mayor's Award. She has served on more than 12 boards in the blindness, disability community, and municipal communities. At the moment, Amy has her own solo show called Through My Lens, which is an intersectionality of blindness and photography, which has been performed in Ottawa, Kingston, Vancouver, and Kelowna. Amy is a passionate lover of the arts, very involved in the arts, as you can tell, and loves to play in that artist sandbox. So thank you to all 3 of you for offering to be asked anything. So these are going to be, like the last round, some pretty interesting questions, and I'm curious about what you're going to say about our first question. A guest who cannot attend is asking, if you're a blind person and you're in the hospital, should there be a sign above your bed saying that you are blind so people know that? Amy, why don't you weigh in on that one, and we'll see what everyone else thinks afterwards.
Oh, thanks for that, Peter. This is Amy speaking, and I have been in the hospital a lot. I'm also a type 1 diabetic, so there's a lot of lovely complications that come with that condition if you've had it long enough. And my experience in hospitals, while people have the best of intentions, I hope, they are also super busy. And so if somebody's coming in to check my blood sugar or check a machine or do a thing, I don't, I'm poked and I'm prodded and I'm whatever, and I don't know who's coming in and out of my space or what they want from me, or and before you know it, I'm being jabbed and I don't know why or by who or how or any of those things. And so I often wonder if I need to have it written on my forehead, like when you go into surgery and they put the X on your arm for like, not this arm. But I also recognize that there is like a tokenistic approach to that. There's an othering approach to that. And everybody walking by recognizes that as well. It's not like it's a private thing in your chart. So, what else should we write on the wall? Should we write that I'm a diabetic? Should we write my age? Should we write, you know what I mean? Like, how far do we go with that? So I think maybe, the air quotes solution to something like that is ask me. Ask me if this is something that is important enough for me to that information becomes public to not just medical staff who might be there, but for anybody who might be, especially in emergency rooms where you don't necessarily have private spaces, although it depends what hospital you're in, but that everybody is going to recognize that, when people come and they drop off the food, you're always having to justify and remind people that you're blind and low vision. That being said, half the time I'm out in the world with my white cane and I still have to tell people what that means.
Right.
So I think, the public education bit is still the way that we have to go. Sandy.
Okay. Thanks, Amy. Charles, how would you respond to that one?
A little differently, perhaps. I, again, like her, have spent a lot of time in hospitals. Fortunately, not too much for a time now, but certainly a few years ago, 20 years ago or so, when I was injured. I believe at the time, blind was written, or there was a sign on the end of my bed indicating that it was blind. And as a result, I think people were very good. I really never had any trouble with people coming up and not telling me what they were doing. The one exception to that was, the last time I was in the hospital, the people who brought in the food trays, I found them to be, very very quick, and I guess they're under pressure. And a lot of times they didn't say anything. I never even knew it was there. Sometimes they would just wheel the thing in across the tray across your bed and leave, and I didn't even know they were there until I sort of sat up and hit it with my hand. So yeah, I personally I have no objection to if I'm in a hospital. Yeah, I want to make it as sort of comfortable for myself as I can, and not leave anything to sort of get the chance with somebody not knowing and not acting accordingly.
Okay, thank you, Charlie. Marcy, what's been your experience?
Oh, I'm with Charles. I mean, it's much quicker for someone to look at a sign on a chart than it is for you to realize that they're there and have to say something. And yeah, though I did have a situation once where I was in the hospital and I argued with a nurse because she didn't think I couldn't see.
Oh.
And that was very interesting. We had a back and forth. No, you can see. No, I can't.
Okay.
Heaven forbid that blind people are too independent, then they call us fakers, right?
And, yes, exactly. Exactly. How do you have a brain?
Yeah. Well, thanks. I mean, what I would really take from your answers is it's very much independent, right? It depends on your comfort level. It depends on sort of your way of operating, but always important to ask first. You may want that sign, but the invitation for that sign to be put there sounds like it's pretty important. So we're going to stick with healthcare, actually. And this question is, does the healthcare center need better policies or education to support disability challenges? So does the healthcare system require better policies and legislation and education in order to meet the challenges of all persons with disabilities? Marcy, I'll go back to you on this one.
Oh, definitely yes. Really simple things to the really complex.
Okay.
Simple things like learning like knowing how to guide someone.
Okay. Yeah.
If they don't allow you to have your guide dog with you, then they need to know how to guide you from place to place. And just being willing to think outside the box. I think someone said that at one point. And figure out a different way of doing things. I mean, I I remember trying to tell one of the nurses that there was absolutely no way that I was going to be able to walk to the washroom with an IV pole and try and deal with me and this IV pole. And so they realized, oh, well, see, we'll just disconnect you. And then when you get back into bed, we'll reconnect you. And I said, yeah, that works. Because working with having to deal with this big IV pole. I mean, like I said, they have to learn how to be creative, I guess. And they need the knowledge as well. Definitely. It's the healthcare system is fraught with accessibility issues.
Yeah, it's one of those big untapped issues, I think.
It's just really strange, if you think about it.
Yeah. Amy?
Yeah, you would think that folks in the medical system would be a little bit more familiar with treating the body kindly or treating people kindly who need extra supports in the medical system. One of the things that I notice keenly, certainly every time, and I'm based in Vancouver, so we've got large medical systems all over the place here. When I visit the eye care center, and there's certainly people there that have white canes. There's a lot of people there who have low vision, or are legally blind that are not trained on white canes yet, or are in denial perhaps that they need a white cane because they're still visiting ophthalmologists and are in the aging process and things like that. I proudly carry mine now, but I had a fall. Actually, I didn't have a fall. I tripped. Which is a different thing. Had a chair that was the leg of the chair was sticking into a door frame. So I didn't expect it to be there. And I tripped with one leg when my cane was on the other side, and I fell into a wall and I hit my head. It was quite nasty. But nobody knew how to actually even pick me up off the ground, right? Like I had hit my neck and could have been quite bad, and they wanted to just pick me up. Wasn't documented, wasn't anything. In the 15 years I've been going there, I've never once been offered sighted guide, and I go there every 3 months. Nobody knows what the white cane means, and this is the eye care center. And so it boggles my mind that people don't care. They call you by name. They say, follow me, right? I'm over here. All of those kinds of things. And even when you're getting your eyes examined, it's, look at the dot on the screen, and it's like, I can't do that, right? Like, why are you putting me through this test if you know I can't see the air balloon in the distance, right? So then you get treated poorly or patronized, or when doctors are speaking to, they speak to you like you don't understand your own condition. And so you have to learn to be your own advocate or bring in an advocate with you. But the thing about that is, and I'll take a quick moment to mention. I always need to bring somebody with me to drive me to some of these, guide
Sometimes
me in
it's required.
So just, I go for a lot of MRIs for another condition, and they always give you a sheet of paper that talks about, last surgeries and, current conditions, and do you have this, and are you pregnant, and all of those things. And for me, oftentimes it's my father that drives me, and they hand him this form and ask him to fill it out for me. And I say, well, actually, I would like somebody from the medical staff to sit with me and fill it out. And they said, well, you brought your dad. And I said, no, my dad's driven me, but I don't necessarily want to give all of my medical information. I don't need him to know if I have a sexually transmitted infection or if I'm pregnant, or like those are private medical things, right? And so I should be able to have a medical person go through my medical questionnaire with me before I have any kind of procedure or test. And that should be my right, separate from whoever drives me to my appointment. Lucky for me, I'm okay with my dad doing that, but it's the principle of it.
Yes, exactly.
That those things are, for some people, very private, and it should be our right to be able to have somebody in the medical system that will sit with us and fill out forms. End of thought.
Okay. Thank you. And that's a wonderful answer. And Charles, how about yourself?
Well, not much more to add to it. I haven't, fortunately, haven't had many of the experiences that Amy sad. But I'm pretty good at speaking up for myself if hey, I'm blind, I can't follow you, at least not that speed anyway. So yeah, I don't know what kind of training medical staff get, whether there's any formal training in terms of dealing with disabilities. I don't know if there isn't, there should be, and if there is, then there probably should be more. But yeah, so there's not much more I can say about it than that.
Okay, well, thank you, Charles. I know this is a topic that we can spend a lot of time on. With the podcast that I have, have spent some time talking about this as well, because it continues to be an issue. So the next question comes from one of our participants, and this does happen, believe it or not. So what would you say to someone, Marcy, who said they would rather be dead than blind? Believe it or not, that does happen.
Well, life is much more than whether you can see or not. There is so much to life that you can do. You can do anything, and you'd miss out on so much that that life has to offer. I mean, there's music, there's art, there's plays, there's everything that you can get into, but you need the support to get past that initial being afraid. And I think that that's what it is. I think that blindness is feared. And I don't think that the English language and the way it's been used in the past has helped. Love is blind, you're blind drunk, you're blind to that, you're being blindsided. I don't think that really helps putting vision loss into a really good light. I think it. Sorry, that was an unintended pun.
Yes.
Really, seriously. But I think that fear is a lot of that. And if death to some is something they don't fear, whereas living with a disability might be something that they fear.
Right.
So I think that people who say that need to be taken seriously, and I think that they need to be shown that life has so much more to offer if they just give it a chance and try and get past their fear.
Thank you for that answer. Amy?
Yeah, those are great points, Marcy. The idea of what we would call the ableist microaggression, which is exactly what you're talking about, is this bias around language that inherently changes the way we think about something. I think media, right, where we see a representation of blindness, as Al Pacino, right, in Scent of a Woman. I think he hated his life in a lot of ways, right? And he was a blind guy. So we often see these poor representations of people with disabilities in media, and that's the only representation we get as a society, and that clouds our judgment of what life is like. Often I think that this happens for folks with an acquired sight loss. So I was 24 when I lost my sight, and I didn't know what it was that I was going to be able to do next. And it was meeting other people in the blind community. And all of a sudden I was like, oh, you mean I just put an elastic band around my shampoo bottle and then I know the difference between the shampoo and conditioner? Like, how smart is that? And once I realized that blindness was inconvenient, but not like, for me, not for some it might be terminal, but for me it was just inconvenient. Right. And I just had to learn what drawer I kept my scissors in, and how to organize my sock drawer, and these things are learnable. And once you immerse yourself with community, you learn the hacks of that.
Right.
And,
I like that.
Right. And then all of a sudden I was like, wait a second, there's richness. These folks have things to offer. There's so much beauty in the blind community that at this point in my life, and Peter, this better not be your next question, but when people say, if God offered you your sight back tomorrow, would you take it? My answer is no. My answer is, this is my life. I've lived this life for 17 years now. I'm happy with who I am. I know how to navigate this world. I don't feel like I'm missing out on anything. I gave up my car. I've made peace with that. I know people and I've had opportunities in this world that I never would have experienced before. And so if I live my life knowing that there are gifts in this world that I have been granted with this experience, that's where I am. And if you can get to that place, you get, especially with an acquired disability, it feels like you've come full circle, and you will find that getting to that place brings you peace.
Well, thank you for another wonderful answer. Charles, how would you respond?
Well, many years ago, when I would have been a much younger man and perhaps not quite as comfortable with my own blindness as I am now, I might have met a response I got, or a comment like that, with some flippant reply like, "Well, I can arrange that for you if you'd like." uh, Fortunately, being a little older now, much older, and somewhat wiser. I realize someone who makes a comment like that is not, it's not that they're just stupid and deserve whatever kind of comment you want to throw back in their face. They do have a problem, and I'm probably not going to solve it for them right now. But I don't, giving them some flippant reply like that probably isn't going to do any good. And would probably cause more harm than perhaps has already been done. So yeah, no, today I would. Yeah, I would take it in a much more mature manner today.
Thanks, John.
Interesting, if I can comment on
Go ahead.
Amy's comment there about if God gave you your sight back tomorrow. I never had sight. I was born without it. I lived a usable vision when I was younger, but at this point I don't. However, yes, I would take it. There's no, and I don't want to spend the rest of the evening going into all the reasons why I do it. But yeah, I don't spend my time beseeching God to bring me my sight. But if it were offered, I'd take it.
Okay. Thank you, Charles.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think we've got time for one more. And I can't resist getting political, although this is not my question. This did come from another audience member. As you know, recently the Mark Carney government formed its new cabinet, and there's no minister directly responsible for issues of persons with disabilities. It is part of a much larger portfolio. I think under families, youth, and children. In the past, there has been more direct responsibilities of ministers for diversity and inclusion and persons with disabilities. In your opinion, does that put the implementation of the Accessibility Canada Act at any kind of risk? Amy, what are your thoughts?
Oh, you had to come to me first with that, Peter. Well, I certainly think that it's unfortunate that this is the decision that's been made. I'm not even sure that it was on anybody's radar, so to speak, because we are always the second cousin twice removed. We're part of the family, but we don't get invited to the dinner table.
Right.
I think I think I'm disheartened by it. I think it's going to have an impact. I think that it's going to mean that whoever's on these committees is going to have to do a lot more work to keep the motion moving forward, and getting the committee work done, or the regulations done and putting them forward. I mean, I think we probably all know that the regulations that need to be put in place are going to take a long time anyway. So some people are saying that's going to take 5 or 10 years, and maybe longer. Like, who knows how long that's going to take? And so maybe
they have till 2040.
Right. So there's opportunity for there to be another minister in place, whoever the next prime minister might be, or for this prime minister to appoint somebody to do that at some point, because maybe they recognize, or maybe we push hard enough as a community for that to be in place. But I certainly think that It's too soon in our young government, air quotes, around representation of disability for us not to have a point person.
Right. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you. Marcy, what are your thoughts?
Well, it looks like it's going to be the Minister of Jobs and Family and FedNor. Don't know where FedNor fits in there, but I guess I hate to use a cliche, but you know the term "out of sight, out of mind." When it's not mentioned, it's not thought about. So it wouldn't have killed Carney to call her the Minister of Jobs, Family Inclusion, and FedNor. One word, and we wouldn't feel. I loved Amy's comment about second cousin once removed and all of that. Yeah, I always say that we're second class citizens.
Yeah.
Because no one thinks we're people too, and and I just think that the fact that there is no minister with the word inclusion or diversity or anything along that line in their job title means that it's going to be out of sight, out of mind. It's not going to be what people think about. It's not going to be what what they concentrate on a daily basis. If it shows up, I mean, ESDC is under the Minister of Jobs and Family and FedNor, and that's where the Office of Disability Issues resides. So in effect, that's where it's going to be. But the fact that it's not even given lip service is really disheartening's not as strong a word. I think disgusting is more like it. Distressing, rather despairing, I think.
Despairing. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Definitely a step backwards, I would have to say.
Oh,
Interjecting myself into the
a
conversation.
few. I would say a mile backwards.
Charles, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, the same as everything already been said. Yeah, of course it's going to be a setback for it. I think, to be fair though, I think the geopolitical situation is going to give this government an opportunity to overlook an awful lot of things besides this Disability Pension Act, or that's not the right word, but you know what I mean.
Yeah,
I think
Accessible Canada.
they're more concerned with right now they're going to be more concerned with interprovincial trade barriers, with building pipelines to the east and west coast, and getting just all that stuff is going to take, I think, a front seat. There are a lot of things that are going to be left behind, and I think the disabled is going to be one of them.
Well, I want to thank you for that. It's an interesting note to end on because the Alliance for Equality of Blind Canadians is an advocacy organization. Obviously, Marcy, as president of AABC, you're not going to be shutting your doors anytime soon, as the advocacy work will need to continue. So I want to thank everyone for coming today. We're just pretty much come up to our 90 minutes. I really want to thank our panelists for putting yourselves out there, answering these questions, as I said earlier, honestly and authentically, and giving us all lots of things to think about, whether we are at ground zero in terms of awareness or like many of us, we've been at this a long time. You've given us all lots of food for thought. Please don't be a stranger to the AEBC, Alliance for Equality of Blind Canadians. Come visit us, send us email. And Marcy, what's the website address that people should go to for more information?
Really easy. It's www.blindcanadians.ca.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you to our audience, and thank you for everyone joining us today in this Thursday of National Accessibility Week. And I look forward to more opportunities to dialogue like this in the future. It's been really worthwhile. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
And if you're listening to this on the replay on YouTube, please, please, please subscribe to our channel, because we need you, and we want to let you know when more events like this go up on our channel.
Okay, thank you, Martha.
Thank you for checking out our content. To learn more about the Alliance for Equality of Blind Canadians, please visit www.blindcanadians.ca. And if you haven't already, please like and subscribe.